Hi everyone! In this video, we'll try to find the answer to the questions: what is STLC? What stages of STLC do you know? Let's begin. This time, we'll start with the human language. The abbreviation, STLC, stands for Software Testing Lifecycle. Unfortunately, this question has the same issue as most software testing questions have. Each instructor has their own opinion on what the software testing lifecycle is. So you can check any of the websites you like and go with a definition. On our side, we prefer to stick with the ISTQB theory in the scope of this question. Currently, ISTQB is the leading global certification scheme in the field of software testing. And when we'll talk formally, we'll use their syllabus and the glossary as references. A link to the ISTQB website will be provided in the materials for the video. So, ISTQB doesn't operate with the STLC abbreviation. Instead, it uses the term the test process. And its definition sounds like this: the set of interrelated activities comprising of test planning, test monitoring and control, test analysis, test design, test implementation, test execution, and test completion. This definition is easy to understand, and obviously we need to get familiar with each activity. But before we start to learn each of the activities separately, we want to share one more comment from ISTQB syllabus. You can pause the video and read it on your own. But to summarize, there is no one universal software test process. Depending on the software development lifecycle, activities will differ. And that is the reason why there are so many different definitions and examples in human language. Because of this, we need some kind of context. We don't want to talk about test process activities in isolation. So we propose to check the ISTQB theory against the Agile methodology, Scrum framework, one sprint. You can check our videos about software development lifecycle and Scrum if all of this is new to you. As we know, typically sprint lasts 2 weeks. Nobody wants to work on weekends, so it limits us to 10 days. And it starts with sprint planning and ends with the demo and retro meetings. Why we show this? Because the test process, or software testing lifecycle, is not an independent vacuum process. It happens inside the software development lifecycle, and our STLC is an Agile Scrum framework, and it starts with sprint planning. And as we know, sprint planning is a meeting. During this meeting, the team reviews the product backlog, estimates and selects the tickets called the user stories, which team can develop in the scope of one sprint. And at this time, team decided that only one user story will be done this sprint. And this is a very important and complex user story. Let's check it. As a customer, I want to apply a coupon on the cart page. The story about the discount coupons. As we said, interesting and complex. Developers move the ticket to the In Progress board, to the Dev In Progress column, and start to do their magic. All that we discussed so far was related to the software development activities. As testers, we are part of those. For example, we play planning poker and estimate the size of the user stories, or we check if requirements are testable. But the most interesting part starts now. Developers are busy doing their magic. There are no tickets for testing yet, so we can't run test cases or log bugs. So what do we do? Drink coffee and play ping pong all the time? Nope, we don't have time for ping pong. We start testing as early as possible, and we start the test process with the test planning activity. The ISTQB definition sounds like this: test planning, the activity of establishing or updating a test plan. It means the following. We have the user story. As a customer, I want to apply a coupon on the cart page. So you sit and think and search for the answers to the questions. who will test, when will test, what will test, and many others. And the document where we write the questions and the answers are called the test plan. Each test process activity has some work product. The result of the work can be shared with the stakeholders or the team. And test plan is the work product of the test planning activity. We will have a separate video about the test plan, so we won't talk in detail about the document structure here, just simple answers to the questions. We think that one tester will be enough to test the user story. And after that, we write down all testing activities we plan to perform during the sprint, and estimate how much time each of them will take. You can pause the video and read those if you want, but it's better to check how those look on the calendar. The test planning starts on the first day of the sprint and ends on the next day. The next activity is test analysis, which starts on the second day, and most likely will take an entire third day. The test design activity will take a full fourth day and will take half of the fifth day as well. Test execution will take 3 days at least, maybe even 3.5. And the last 2 days we will have test completion activities and Scrum meetings. The last activity is test monitoring and control. It starts after the sprint planning and ends with the test completion activity. And we're going to discuss each of the activities in detail in this video, so it will take a lot of time. Writing the test plan took the rest of Monday and half of Tuesday. And we can see that the next activity is test analysis. But in fact, we need to talk about the magnifying glass first. It represents another test activity. Test monitoring and control, we combine those in one block, because test control is the result of test monitoring, and the definitions sound like this. Test monitoring, the activity that checks the status of testing activities, identifies any variances from planned and reports status to stakeholders. Test control, the activity that develops and applies corrective actions to get a test project on track when it deviates from what was planned. You can pause the video and read the definitions one more time. These two activities are related to test planning. During the test planning activity, we wrote the test plan. There we planned who, what, and when we'll do. Now we need to add the metrics to the test plan. Those test monitoring metrics and their main goal is to compare actual progress against planned progress. When we use the metrics, we check if is everything going as planned. Mostly the answer is yes or no. And if we face any deviations, we provide recommendations. The document where we provide this info is the test report. The test report is the product of the test monitoring activity. If our recommendations are approved by stakeholders, we do corresponding actions like adding more resources or changing the timelines activities. That is an example of a test control activity, and we will talk about it later. Selecting the test metrics happens in the scope of the test plan. It means that we selected them on the same day we wrote the test plan. We still have half of the day to start the test analysis activity. Let's check its definition. Test analysis, the activity that identifies test conditions by analyzing the test bases. And this one needs an explanation. We already have a user story and we have a test plan. Now we need to investigate the test bases and find there what we want to test, the test conditions. What is test basis? In our case, the user story is just a title. In reality, there is much more information related to the coupon types, user types, and rules. We will call it a requirement specification. Some documents where the main business journeys and rules are described. You can also have some mock-ups created by designers. There you can check how the story will look to the end users. You can check the architecture diagrams, some database schemas, or service integration details. All of this can be used to define the test conditions. We write down user types and coupon types. Everything we need to test. We can note some issues with the test basis as well. In our case, we don't have a design for the mobile version, which is very important, and we will come back to it in a minute. Let's note that the work product of the test analysis are test conditions, and mostly it is time-consuming activity. And reading all of the documents and checking designs and schemas is not an easy task, so it took 1.5 days, exactly the time we estimated. And it is 3 days in total, so it is the time to check the board. And when we check it, we can see that the ticket is moved to the code review column. Looks like developers are close to finishing their work, and it is strange. That there are no designs for the mobile version of the website, so developers couldn't finish the coding, and this is an example of test monitoring activity. During that activity, we check is everything going as we planned, and the current answer is yes. Because everything goes as planned, the third day ended and we finished the test analysis activity. But the problem is that the next activities can be affected. If we don't have the mobile design, we won't be able to finish the test design and implementation activities. We need to write a test report. So we write that the mobile design is missing, and we need it on Friday morning. Also, we want to clarify how developers finish the coding phrase without the designs for the mobile version of the website. And we send the report via email to the team, and I want to highlight it one more time. This is an example of test monitoring activity only. We identify potential variances from the planned activities and wrote the report to the stakeholders. We haven't done test control activities yet, because so far everything goes according to plan. We are not blocked, and we can continue with the next test activity. And it is test design activity. The definition sounds like this: the activity that derives and specifies test cases from test conditions. And this one is the most interesting and the most complicated activity, because the work products of this activity are test cases. Let's check how it works. As we said, the result of the test analysis activity is test conditions. We made a list of things we want to test. Now, we need to write test cases that will cover the test conditions. As we don't use any fancy tool, we need another notepad page. Here we'll write the test cases. Test design is a complex activity, and we are going to talk about it a lot in the future videos. In this video, we're going to write just summaries of test cases. We can use different test design techniques and write a lot of test cases: functional, not functional, identify regression areas. As a result, we have a list of test cases we plan to run. And creating the checklist took an entire day. Tomorrow we plan to finish the test design and test implementation activities. And we hope that in the morning we'll have the answer to our email. We need the designs for the mobile version of the website. Otherwise, we'll be blocked. The next day, we come to work early and check the email box, and we can see the email from the manager. We have the design and can continue on test activities, but developers will need another day to finish their work. Mobile design is nothing special, but it means that we need to select devices with different screen resolutions and platforms for testing, and it will take a lot of time, because we will need to run the same test cases multiple times. And we add this check to our checklist, that we will need to run test cases on different resolutions. The real problem is the second part of the email. The story, instead of moving forward to the Ready for Testing column, moves back to the Dev in Progress column, and this potentially can affect your execution schedule. As you remember, the test execution activity starts the next working day, which is Monday. But for now, we can't do anything about it, so we continue our activities. And the next one is the test implementation. Let's check what it is. The definition sounds like this: the activity that prepares the test where needed for test execution based on test analysis and design. And the main test product of the test implementation is the test procedure. Let's check what it is. The test procedure is another document, and it's extremely important in automation testing. You need to select the order of test cases if you can run those in parallel, or do you need to run them one by one. Specify preconditions before the run and some SQL scripts to prepare the environment. Set up post conditions like setting simulators into the default state and many other activities like this. So we do all we need to prepare for the execution. And writing this document and perform the activities specified in it took the rest of Friday. Till now, everything went according to our plan. We had an issue with the mobile design, but they provided it just in time in the morning. And on Monday, we need to start the test execution. So the story should be ready for testing by Monday morning. When we check the board, we can see that story is in the code review state. So there is a chance it will be ready on Monday morning. But it is 6 p.m. Friday, and we go home. Monday morning, we come to work. The fun part of testing should start today. And we drink a cup of coffee and check the board. The ticket is still in the code review state. This is a disaster. The test execution activity is blocked. And because of it, it is time for another activity. Back to the test monitoring and control. Currently, it is test monitoring. We need to write a test report again. This time, we don't have time for real reports and emails. We simply write to the manager in the chat. You can pause the video and read the chat. But basically, the manager trusts us and we need to perform the test control activities. As you remember, test control is the activity that develops and applies corrective actions to get a test project on track when it deviates from what was planned. So in our case, the corrective action is adding an additional person, the UI tester, and we hope that the test project will be back on track and we will finish everything in time. And we wait the entire day for the ticket to be ready for testing. We added an additional tester. And now, when we have 2 people, we can play foosball or ping pong the entire day. Or share some knowledge and investigate the test bases one more time. It is up to you. I hope it is clear that we simplify a lot of things. If we would discuss how all of this really works, the video would last for days. In reality, most likely, you won't wait an entire day. You will be testing what is possible while developers work on the mobile version. But this is another story. Let's go back to our simplified version. Finally, Tuesday comes. And the dream comes true. The ticket is ready for testing. We move it to the testing in progress right away. It's time to start the test execution activity. The test execution is the activity that runs a test on a component or system producing actual results. And the main work products are test case statuses and defect reports. And to illustrate this, we don't need additional documents. We can use the test cases checklist. We run the tests and mark the status of each of them. Some test cases pass and others fail. And for those that fail, we need to log a bug. In our case, only one test case failed. It's time to write a defect report. We will have a separate video about the defect reports, so we log is a simple one for now. And put a defect report ticket on the board to the To-Do column. Developers take it right away and start to work on it, and move it to the In Progress column. And that is how the first day of the test execution went. The next day starts similarly to the previous one. So we check the board. And we can see that the bug is in the Ready for Testing column. We move the ticket to the Testing in Progress and run our test cases again. We need to run all of them one more time, because the bug fixing could introduce new defects. But this time everything worked fine. All the test cases passed. And it took us an entire day, and we are ahead of schedule now. So we play another game of ping pong and go home. The next day, we move both tickets to the Done board and start the last activity. Test completion activity, or test closure activity, if you remember an older version of the ISTQB. The definition sounds like this: the activity that makes test assets available for later use, leaves test environments in a satisfactory condition, and communicates the results of testing to relevant stakeholders. It is better to illustrate it with the main work product, the test summary report. But we won't write a formal report. We again just write manager in the chat. The message includes how many test cases were run and how many of them are passed or failed. And we report how many bugs were found and fixed. The manager is happy, and that's it. The project can be formal or informal, and you need to know where it is required to write proper documents and where it is unnecessary. That's all. We discussed very superficially all the test activities specified in ISTQB. You can pause the video and read those one more time if you want. On our side, we go take some rest, because it is the longest video we have ever done. And we burned out making it. So all the next videos will be very short. Hope to see you there.